Hello, welcome to another edition of the Charles Report. It's Saturday, October 11th. This is coming to you from Ormond Beach, Florida. Number of interesting things in the news um, on today's World Socialist website, wsws.org. An interesting article about 2 months since the shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. 100 people have been killed by police in similar incidents in the last 2 months alone. That's 100 people. Some of these shootings are more have been videoed and are. I saw a couple of videos on CNN. It's really shocking, and this just goes to show you basically the unhinged nature of the police state mentality and the power structure in this country. That they are losing their grip on power, and as a result of that, this is what will ensue in the short term. Um, Another interesting, and of course, our admiration goes out to the brave people in Ferguson that are standing up to this oppression, and a judge's recent decision to uh, claim that it was a good decision, saying that the police couldn't harass the protesters for only exercising their constitutional rights to right to assemble. The so-called 5-second rule that no longer applied, that the police were trying to use to discourage and run off the protesters in Ferguson. Um, the interesting they, an interesting thing they pointed out in this article is that the assumption that laws apply equally to the public and to the police are definitely not the case. This is what the article pointed out. Basically, the police and the power structure generally, whether it's internationally, overseas, or locally here at home, is completely operating outside the bounds of law. And who holds the police or any civil authority accountable when they are violating the most basic laws of in the country, the Constitution of the United States? No one holds them accountable. So basically, we're living within a lawless regime where the only law is the law of the jungle, which says the strong have the right to eat the weak, and power determines everything else. Might makes right, as we often say. So anyway, that's an interesting story. Reading today's, actually, it was yesterday's copy of the Wall Street Journal, a lot on the Ebola crisis, and an interesting article. I believe it was right on the front page of yesterday's journal. Guess which country has sent more medical workers into the hot zone in Western Africa than any other country in the world? Well, you're not going to believe it, but it's Cuba. And they have sent 165 healthcare workers to the hot zone. That includes the Liberia, Guinea, and one other country whose name I can't remember right now, Southwest Africa, and I was actually surprised, but not surprised, because I know that Cuba has taken a very active interest in African affairs. They sent a number of brigades to fight in the war in Angola to take on the South Africans during the apartheid days, and it's really interesting to see that all the United States is doing is sending a military force, basically, to further assert military control over the area, and to use this Ebola crisis as an excuse for further militarization of that particular portion of Africa. And it's always the same story with the United States, just more of the same. Every problem has a military solution. And of course, people. I think people are beginning to recognize just how serious this Ebola crisis really is, and that I've seen that it's increasing exponentially. By January, some people are saying that if it keeps at the same rate, there could be 1 million cases worldwide of Ebola. or maybe it's 1 million cases in Africa. I don't know, but I think the thing is that the power structure is playing this. It's an African problem, and once again quarantine these nations, and the rest of the world won't be affected. I think that's the tune that plays in the background, and it's really ridiculous because that's not possible. Cases have broken out of human-to-human transmission in Spain, Czechoslovakia, and I don't know if there's any other countries, but basically, and of course the one death here in the United States. But Ebola is the world's most deadly disease, with the 48% mortality rate, according to what the journal said yesterday. And my mind, I guess, works in strange ways. I was reading years back about all the research that was being done in the bioweapons area right here in the United States on germs like Ebola, and how that these things have been weaponized. And then there was a treaty with the Soviets, and they did away with biological weapons supposedly. But they've always all the research that states have done, and I'll put other states in there, but of course I think the United States is the biggest bioweapons program in the world. But let's put other countries in there. What happened to these germs and all these bioweapons that were and Ebola was one of them. We don't know, and this whole outbreak in Africa, I think, is impacted these countries more so than would have a Western country, because of the extreme poverty and degradation that people live under there. And I'm not trying to imply any broader or deeper conspiracy here. I'm just thinking, what a waste of resources, that everything in this country is put into financing war and better ways to kill people and to mass murder people, basically. Because that's what these weapons of mass destruction are all about, whether it's nuclear weapons or even the kind of conventional arms that exist today. And it's just humanity, or basically the breakdown of civilization in the era that we're living through right now. And I think that's really becoming increasingly obvious, with just how this entire civilization, this global civilization of global capitalism, is melting down and creating innumerable catastrophes on innumerable fronts. You have the situation with the ecology of the earth and global warming, and the possible runaway greenhouse effect that will make basically life unlivable on this planet. And there's no interest in that. You have an arms race, or constant money put into armaments, and increasing wars and disorder all over the world. You have deteriorating living standards here in the United States. You have the outbreaks of diseases such as Ebola that have never been seen before, not to mention AIDS, never been seen before in human history. And it's still the constant refrain from the power structure, and people willing to turn over their responsibilities to a power structure that's proven itself to be in violation of the U.S. Constitution and everything that this country really stands for. And I wonder just how much is it going to take for people to wake up? I don't know. But I think the folks out in Ferguson have had enough. And I'm reminded of a saying that President Kennedy is alleged to have made at one point in his political career, that those who make peaceful change impossible make violent change inevitable. And I wonder if that's perhaps the direction that things are headed in right now in regard to what's happening out there in Ferguson. And, as I've said before, white radicals are often afraid to admit that African Americans are the spearhead of revolution in this country. And they don't want to accept a second place to that. I think that this has been kind of historic in some ways, but it really puzzles me just how comfortable people can get in situations that seem increasingly dangerous. The determination of the power structure here to confront Russia, the second largest nuclear power on Earth, as well as taking on China, it really boggles the mind. And I wonder, is anybody paying attention to this? Does anybody care? I mean, are people really interested in even their own survival? I really wonder sometimes. The news and the machinations of the power structure in this country, and internationally, it is so pathetic and so power driven, outside of the realm of any legal constraint. That, as I said, we're living in a new period where the only laws that apply are the laws of the jungle. And unfortunately, I don't think the outcome is going to be good if the American people aren't willing to step up and hold these misleaders accountable for their actions. And of course, that includes Obama as well as Bush and many other major misleaders. And I really feel that this is a slow process, and it is coming about through a slow process of consciousness raising, and people beginning to see that this is the last stop on the bus for us, humanity, and there is a common cause for all this. And these aren't just separate boxes people categorize in their mind. There's one common thread that links all this together, and it's capitalism. And people are allergic to. We've been propagandized for years in regard to Marx and his theories, but Marx was the only person who ever scientifically, most scientifically, analyzed capitalism and gave us a real clear understanding of its basic functioning. Now, that doesn't mean he knew how to go from here to where we would like to be or where we have to be. It means that basically Marx was a genius, and that he could critique capitalism more accurately, and was the most up to date, and still is the most up to date economist that there's ever been. So the power structure has a way of obfuscating things, and their only interest is more power and more wealth and more influence and complete and total world domination at any cost to themselves, any cost to the planet, and at any cost to humanity. And we're beginning to see just what this madness is leading to. And I'm hopeful, and I want to share that hope with you and other people, that people are finally beginning to come together and realize that yes, we can change things. A better world is in the offing. It seems dark and dreary sometimes, but the fact that people can talk about these things and come together and really be pivotal in changing things is reason for optimism. So I want to leave you with that, and wish you a very happy day, and I will see you again shortly. Bye-bye.